Hi class, I noticed that many of you are struggling with your in-text citations in MLA format, and I thought I would create a little video to give you a little further instruction on how to use these. So, whenever you're using outside sources, you need to make sure that you're citing so people know where your information comes from. The objectives of this video and slideshow is to show you the difference between paraphrasing, summarizing, and quoting, and also to illustrate how to use signal phrases and in-text citing with paraphrasing, summarizing, and quoting according to MLA guidelines. So there are three ways to use your sources: paraphrasing, summarizing, and quoting. A paraphrase is basically when you take a short text and you put it into your own words. So you've got a paragraph, you put it in your own words, that's a paraphrase. Whenever you use a paraphrase, you need to include an in-text citation to let your reader know that you're using someone else's words, ideas, or phrasing. A summary is when you have a large text like a whole book or a whole article or a whole film and you're distilling it down into one paragraph. That's when you're focusing on the main points. Again, because you're using someone else's ideas, words, or phrasing, you must use an in-text citation to let your readers know that this came from a source. Finally, a direct quote is when you take something word for word from a source and use it in your text. A lot of you probably already know how to do this. It's especially important to make sure you include signal phrasing with direct quotes to let readers know that you're going to be using someone else's materials. A signal phrase is basically a way to introduce paraphrased, summarized, or quoted material into a text that you're writing. Signal phrases use the author's name plus a signal phrase verb. A signal phrase verb could be says, argues, explains, declares, points out, and those sorts of things. They show how the information is being conveyed. For example, educator and philosopher Paulo Freire explains the benefits of problem-posing education. And you see Paulo Freire right here. This is our author name, and explains is our signal phrase verb. That ends with an in-text citation with the page number that paraphrase came from. So when should writers use signal phrases? All the time. If you're paraphrasing, summarizing, or quoting, you should probably use a signal phrase. Without a signal phrase, your reader will not know what's yours and what comes from your sources. So how is a signal phrase used with a paraphrase or a summary? First, you'll use the author's full name. After that, you just use the author's last name. You'll use a signal phrase verb to show how the author conveyed the information. And then you'll use your parenthetical citation or your in-text citation to show where the source material came from. A paraphrase with signal phrases and a parenthetical citation would look like this. So, educator and philosopher Paulo Freire explains the benefits of problem-posing education. He asserts that problem-posing education empowers students and breaks down the dichotomy between teachers and students. Freire argues that through problem-based learning, teachers and students learn together and from each other. And then I have my in-text parenthetical citation at the end. So everything between this signal phrase here and this parenthetical citation comes from this one source on these two pages. I included extra signal phrasing in here just to show that I was using this one source. It might feel like overkill, but it's definitely a helpful thing to do. So if you're going to insert your voice, we have educator and philosopher Paulo Freire explains the benefits of problem-posing education. He asserts, and then we have our parenthetical citation down here. So everything between Paulo Freire explains and this citation is from the source. And then here's my voice. This is an important concept because it acknowledges that students create knowledge too. Thus, Freire argues that through problem-based learning, teachers and students learn together and from each other. So, because there is a third signal phrase, this lets the readers know that this orange sentence in the middle was my own. So, signal phrase and then another parenthetical citation. Another way to do this, I have my signal phrase, Paulo Freire explains. I have my parenthetical citation. Here's my material. And then, thus, through problem-based learning, teachers and students learn together and learn from each other. I know that this parenthetical citation here only belongs to this sentence because there's no signal phrase in the orange material. So this sentence not having any signal phrasing associated with it or any in-text citing associated with it lets your readers know that this is yours. And then this last sentence having the in-text citation shows that this came from your source. So if you're going to insert a direct quote, you need to include additional parenthetical citations. So we have Paulo Freire explains, he asserts, and then we have our citation to show the end of our paraphrase. Freire emphasizes, the students, no longer docile listeners, are now critical co-investigators in dialogue with the teacher. I cite my page where that quote came from. This is my idea right here. This is an important concept because it acknowledges that students create knowledge too. Thus, through problem-based learning, teachers and students learn together and from each other. So I have my in-text citation down here at the end. So you can see that because there's no signal phrase, this citation goes with this sentence. We have our direct quote cited, and then we have our paraphrase at the beginning cited. So a signal phrase with a direct quote, you use the author's full name. Afterward, you just use the last name, exactly like we did with the paraphrasing and summarizing. You use a signal phrase verb, your parenthetical citation, and then if you need to, you can use an ellipsis mark to show where words have been left out, and you can use brackets to show where you have to insert or change words. So educational scholar Jack Mesereau, there's my signal phrase, contends learners transform their frames of reference through critical reflection on the assumptions upon which their interpretations, beliefs, and habits of mind or points of view are based. There's my ellipses. Self-reflection can lead to significant personal transformations. So in this direct quote, I had to change a few words to make them fit better into my text. So I included those in the brackets. I left out some material here, so I have my ellipses to show stuff is missing. And I have my signal phrase and my parenthetical citation at the end. So, if you're not sure about something, please contact me. I noticed a lot of you are struggling with your in-text citations. I want you to learn how to do this correctly. Pay close attention to guidelines for using signal phrasing with paraphrase, summarized, and quoted information. Keep a reference manual at hand, the Purdue OWL. And then if you Google signal phrase verbs, you can come up with a lot of nice lists of verbs that will make your vocabulary interesting and varied for your readers. There's my work cited, again in MLA format. And I want to show you one more thing before we move forward. This is the Purdue OWL, owl.english or owl.purdue.edu, and I'm clicking the online writing lab. And in here there is an MLA guide. So we're clicking the MLA guide. And we're looking at the formatting and style guide. There is additional information on how to format your paper in MLA style. If you look over here on the left, it talks about MLA in-text citations, the basics. You can click here and it walks you through how to do your in-text citations. So here, you see the signal phrase and the citation. If you don't have a signal phrase, you use the author's name and the citation. In my slideshow, I only used one author, so I didn't include the last name every time. So when you change your author, that's when you want to use your signal phrase and use your author's last name in your citations. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I'm in my office at regular times during the week.